the U.S. going to war with Iran? In 1951, Iran's parliament voted to nationalize the country's oil, which had been under the control of the British Empire for the past 50 years. This enraged British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, who convinced U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower to overthrow the country's government. On August 19, 1953, the CIA overthrew the democratically elected prime minister and gave absolute power to the monarch Mohammad Reza Shah. The Shah immediately gave the US and UK control of the country's oil and would rule as dictator for the next 26 years. In 1979, the Islamic Revolution saw the Shah removed from power, and Western oil companies were forced to leave the country. In an attempt to exploit Iran's weakened military, Saddam Hussein's Iraq invaded Iran on September 22, 1980. The Reagan administration provided Saddam with billions in economic aid and military weapons. These weapons included poisonous chemicals and deadly biological viruses such as anthrax and bubonic plague. In 1988, the U.S. became involved in the war directly, destroying half of Iran's navy and shooting down an Iranian commercial flight, killing 290 people on board. In total, Saddam had killed over 600,000 Iranians as well as 200,000 Iraqi Kurds. After the war, the U.S. greatly expanded existing sanctions, banning all trade with both American and foreign companies. This has had a devastating effect on Iran's economy and prevents the country from accessing key food imports, as well as many life-saving medicines. On June 22, 2025, despite Trump's own Director of National Intelligence claiming that U.S. intel does not believe Iran is building a nuclear weapon, the U.S. Air Force struck 3 Iranian nuclear sites, and as of February 2026, the U.S. is preparing to strike again. Widespread protests, caused by the U.S. blockade, are destabilizing the country, and the Trump administration is looking to deal a final blow.
The talks that never happened.
Trump cancels Witkoff and Kushner's trip to Pakistan for Iran talks.
Too much travel. Trump on cancelling envoy's Pakistan trip. Has the momentum gone from US-Iran peace talks?
As blunt as ever, US President Donald Trump has called off that delegation to Pakistan to potentially discuss directly with Iran. It leaves us somewhat in limbo in terms of what happens next. We've been led to believe over the last few days that diplomatic discussions have been going on behind the scenes. But in terms of any future direct negotiations of the kind we saw 2 weeks ago, that does not seem to be on the cards for the time being. The kind of mood music we've been hearing from the White House over the last few days has been that they are in no mood to make a quick deal. "We have all the time in the world," said Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, on Friday, and that may well be the case, but I think a lot of Trump's traditional supporters will disagree.
Like, UAE exited OPEC, oil manufacturing countries club. Augurs well for us, not US.
OPEC just lost a key member, the United Arab Emirates. But what's OPEC, and why does this matter? The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries is a group of big oil producers dominated mainly by the Middle East, who first got together in the 1960s. It's a cartel, which means it effectively fixes prices by deciding on how much oil each member is allowed to produce. You cut production, prices go up. You increase production, prices go down. That's the idea. So the cost of filling up your car or heating your home depends a lot on OPEC. But why is the UAE leaving the club? Well, it seems they don't want to keep taking orders from Saudi Arabia, which is kind of like the unofficial leader of OPEC. They want to be able to produce more oil, sell it, and make more money. Also, the world's slowly reducing its dependency on oil, so they want to maximize their profits while they can. And what does this mean for your energy bills? Well, in the short term, unfortunately, nothing. The Strait of Hormuz is still blocked, so that extra oil would have nowhere to go anyway. But when that's resolved, yeah, there's a decent chance this will see energy prices go down.
Crude exit. UAE pumps the brakes on OPEC unity amid Hormuz chaos. Why UAE walked out? The UAE said its exit was driven by national interest and long-term energy strategy. It had long been uneasy with OPEC production caps that limited its expansion plans. Frustration over regional security responses during recent tensions also added to the decision.
Effective May 1st, the United Arab Emirates will withdraw its membership from the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC. The UAE stated the decision reflects its, quote, long-term strategic and economic vision. This departure could potentially affect OPEC's capacity to regulate the global oil supply and prices. The UAE made the announcement to leave the so-called oil cartel via the state-run WAM news agency and cited, quote, near-term volatility in the market and a desire to ramp up investment in domestic energy production. The statement referred to the Iran war started by the US and Israel in February, which has choked oil transport through the important Strait of Hormuz, and the government's desire to meet what it thinks will be the, quote, sustained growth of energy demand in the medium to long term. The nation's decision to leave the group comes after it criticized fellow Arab states for not doing enough to protect the region from attacks during the Iran war started by the US and Israel in February, and as it increasingly conflicts with Saudi Arabia, OPEC's de facto leader. The UAE is the third largest OPEC oil producer, behind Saudi Arabia and Iraq, and its decision to withdraw from the alliance signals internal disputes that could impact the group's influence over global markets. The United Arab Emirates will also leave OPEC Plus, a broader alliance formed in 2016 that encompasses OPEC's 12 core members plus 10 other major producers, including Russia, Mexico, and Kazakhstan. The price of Brent crude rose 4% to above $105 a barrel Tuesday morning on news President Donald Trump is dissatisfied with Iran's proposal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, but then slipped to $104 per barrel after the UAE announced it would leave OPEC. Brent's price has risen about $10 in the last week. For more on this story, check out the article at the link in the description.
You are watching Sanglikar's Weekly.
Donald Trump has urged Iran to, quote, get smart soon and sign a peace deal following days of deadlock in negotiations and reports that the U.S. is ready to extend its blockade of Iranian seaports. U.S. media claim that Trump has instructed aides to prepare for an extended blockade in a bid to force Tehran to capitulate. Since the war broke out in February, Iran has largely blocked shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, a bottleneck for global energy supplies through the Gulf. The U.S. began blocking Iranian ports this month in retaliation. Ali Fatollah-Nejad is director of the Center for Middle East and Global Order. I asked him how much pressure an extended blockade could put on Iran and whether it could force them to sign a peace deal.
Well, maybe not the latter, but it is very clear that this U.S. naval blockade is aiming to complicate the export of Iranian oil. About 80% of Iranian oil goes through the Strait of Hormuz, 90% of which go to China. So it is very clear what the U.S. is intending to do with this naval blockade, to flip the coin basically on what the Iranians are trying to do when they themselves are blockading the Strait of Hormuz. Now, in Iran, there are different factions, there are different views about the economic pain. There is one group that is seeing some kind of economic urgency because of the deep economic crisis that the country is facing, that is deepening because of the war, because of the internet shutdown that is also quite costly that the Iranian regime has imposed upon its own people. So this economic crisis is going to be deeper and deeper. And there is one faction within the regime that believes that this is going to be a destabilizing factor for regime security and stability. But then again, there is another faction that is ready to take the economic pain and to keep on resisting the United States. So it is, but the bottom line is that if this naval blockade is going to continue against Iranian ports, the Iranians will certainly feel the pressure much more than they already see.
And on the diplomatic front, we understand that the new proposal from Iran submitted earlier this week sets aside the nuclear issue until the war ends and shipping disputes are resolved. This is a non-starter for the United States. They want the nuclear issue resolved. What do you make of the regime's strategy and negotiations?
Well, that's true. So we are seeing a different framework that is proposed by the Iranian side. Not anymore a kind of framework that we've seen over the last years and decades. That is getting sanctions relief, in turn, offering some nuclear concessions. And it is quite clear, although Trump's policies on Iran have been quite erratic, that is very much focusing on the nuclear issue. And now the Iranians are, proposing that the Strait of Hormuz is going to be reopened. So this signals that they do understand that they cannot live with such a blockade for too long. And in exchange, what the Iranians want to see is that they want to see a permanent end to the war and probably some kind of guarantees, although guarantees is going to be quite difficult to attain. That said, we're not sure about the exact details of that framework, but we know that at least Trump is not satisfied from what he has received so far. When it comes to Iranian domestic politics and the kind of infighting that we're seeing, the commander-in-chief of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the RGC, Ahmad Vaidi, has been the one that was arguing now for a few weeks that Iran should not negotiate on the nuclear issue.
Thank you so much, Ali Fatullah-Nejad. We appreciate your time.
Like, on April 27th, 2026, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi called on Putin in St. Petersburg. Significant meeting.
Do you feel the support of Russia?
Iran and Russia are strategic partners. They have always supported us. We have always supported Russians, and our cooperation would continue.
Like, Bahrain has revoked citizenship of 69 Iran sympathizers. Gap is wide open.
Bahrain revoked the citizenship of 69 people and their families for expressing support for Iranian attacks, the Interior Ministry said on Monday. Bahrain has been among Gulf countries that were subject to attacks by Iran in retaliation for U.S.-Israeli airstrikes on Iran that began on February 28th.
नाजरीन, बहरीन से एक चौंका देने वाली खबर, जहां हुकूमत ने एक इंतहाई सख्त इक़दाम उठाते हुए 69 अफराद की शहरियत मनसूख कर दी है। वजारत दाखिला का कहना है कि ये अफराद ईरानी हमलों की तारीफ या उनसे हमदर्दी रखने के मुर्तकिब पाए गए हैं। ये फैसला बहरीन की वजारत दाखिला ने एक सरकारी बयान में जारी किया, जिसमें कहा गया कि इन अफराद का मुआनदाना कार्रवाइयों और बैरूनी अनासर से गठजोड़ में मुलव्विस होना साबित हुआ है। हैरान कुन तौर पर मनसूख की जाने वाली शहरियतों में न सिर्फ वो अफराद शामिल हैं जिन पर बराह रास्त इल्जामात हैं, बल्कि उनके अहले खाना भी इस गैर मामूली फैसले की जद में आए हैं। ये इकदाम खित्ते में ईरान और खलीजी रियासतों बिलखुसूस बहरीन के दरमियान बढ़ती हुई कशीदगी और ईरान के दुश्मनाना इकदामात से निमटने के हुकूमती अज़्म को जाहिर करता है। बहरीन की हुकूमत पहले भी सिक्योरिटी वजूहात पर शहरियों की शहरियत मनसूख करने के इकदामात कर चुकी है। इस वक्त खित्ते में सियासी अदम इस्तेहकाम और बैनुल-अक़वामी ताल्लुकात में बढ़ती हुई पेचीदगियां इस तरह के फैसलों को मजीद अहमियत देती हैं। इंसानी हकूक की तंजीमें मुसलसल इस तरह की कार्रवाइयों पर तशवीश का इजहार करती रही हैं, क्योंकि इनसे शहरियों के बुनियादी हकूक की खिलाफ वर्जी और उनके मुस्तकबिल पर गहरे मनफी असरात मुरतब हो सकते हैं। शहरियत से महरूमी से इन अफराद को कानूनी, समाजी और माशी मसाइल का सामना करना पड़ेगा, जो उनकी जिंदगियों को यकसर बदल कर रख देंगे। बहरीन के इस इक़दाम से इलाकाई ताल्लुकात मजीद कशीदा होने का खदशा है। अब यह देखना बाकी है कि बैनुल-अक़वामी बिरादरी इस पर क्या रद्द-ए-अमल देती है और यह फैसला बहरीन के अंदरूनी इस्तेहकाम और बैरूनी ताल्लुकात को किस हद तक मुतासिर करता है। आया ये इक़दाम मजीद कशीदगी का बायस बनेगा या बहरीन अपनी पॉलिसी पर कायम रहेगा? आने वाला वक्त ही बताएगा।
Like, Mali is fighting Al-Qaeda groups. Its defense minister is killed.
This is the new face of Al-Qaeda, and its fighters are now on the doorstep of this capital, choking off fuel and food, sending residents scrambling and the U.S. Embassy evacuating. If the city of Bamako falls, the terror group could soon dominate the whole country of Mali.
It has become, with that scenario, a real possibility.
But what does the group actually want? And 25 years into the war on terror, how are al-Qaeda militants still gaining ground?
US-Germany ties. Trump threatens to pull troops from Germany after spat with MERS.
US President Donald Trump has said that the US is considering reducing the number of its troops in Germany. And this amid a row with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz over the war with Iran. In a post on Truth Social platform, Trump said that the US is reviewing the possible reduction of troops in Germany with a determination to be made over the next short period of time. According to the Congressional Research Service, the US had more than 35,000 troops in Germany in 2024. Although the number is now believed to be higher, with German media saying it's near 50,000. During both of his terms in office, Trump has made a number of threats to slash US troop numbers in Germany and other European allies as part of his criticism of the NATO allies. But this time it's different. The White House appears determined to punish allies who have failed to back the US-Israeli war in Iran or contributing to peacekeeping efforts in the crucial Strait of Hormuz.
Like, many believe that attack on Trump at White House ballroom was stage-managed.
Shootout at White House. Shooting at White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Gunshots rang out during the White House Correspondents' Dinner at the Washington Hilton. Secret Service agents covered President Trump and the First Lady and quickly rushed them off stage.
I heard a noise and sort of thought it was a tray. I thought it was a tray going down.
The gunman, armed with a shotgun, handgun, and knives, rushed past a security checkpoint and agents opened fire, as did the suspect. President Trump posted this picture on social media after agents captured the man, identified as 31-year-old Cole Allen of Torrance, California. He was taken down before entering the event ballroom. Sources tell CBS News he was targeting administration officials. Correspondents and other guests scrambled to hide under tables. Others ran for cover. The suspect worked as a tutor in California. He prepared 11th grader Jason Moses for tests. President Trump praised the Secret Service for its rapid handling of what could have been a very different outcome.
White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt said the suspected shooter at the White House Correspondents' Dinner on Saturday night was trying to assassinate President Donald Trump and kill as many top Trump administration officials as possible shortly after Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche told Meet the Press on Sunday that Justice Department investigators believe the suspect was trying to target officials' administration. Modi posted on X, relieved to learn that President Trump, the First Lady and Vice President are safe and unharmed following the recent security incident at a Washington, D.C. hotel. I extend my best wishes for their continued safety and well-being. Violence has no place in a democracy and must be unequivocally condemned.
You are watching Sanglikar's Weekly.
Like, UK's King Charles was in USA at a ceremonial dinner hosted at White House. Trump said Trump's mother had a crush on young Charles. In reply, Charles said his mother, Queen Elizabeth, had met as many as 13 serving US presidents, all fully clothed.
For all of that time, our destinies as nations have been interlinked. As Oscar Wilde said, we have really everything in common with America nowadays, except, of course, language. So, ladies and gentlemen, we meet in times of great uncertainty. Now, as you may know, when I address my own Parliament at Westminster, we still follow an age-old tradition and take a Member of Parliament hostage, holding him or her at Buckingham Palace until I am safely returned. These days, we look after our guests rather well, to the point that they often do not want to leave. I don't know, Mr. Speaker, if there were any volunteers for that role here today. This is a city which symbolizes a period in our shared history, or what Charles Dickens might have called a tale of two Georges. The first president, George Washington, and my 5 times great-grandfather, King George III. King George, as you know, never set foot in America, and please rest assured, ladies and gentlemen, I am not here as part of some cunning rearguard action. Mr. President, I am delighted to present to you, as a personal gift, the original bell which hung on the conning tower of your valiant namesake. May it stand as a testimony to our nation's shared history and shining future. And should you ever need to get hold of us, or just give us a ring. You recently commented, Mr. President, that if it were not for the United States, European countries would be speaking German. Dare I say that if it wasn't for us, you'd be speaking French. Of course, we both love our French cousins greatly, and we 3 estates are not only bound by our shared values, but by a profound belief that together we are more than the sum of our parts.
I would probably encourage him to return the Kohinoor diamond.
If you have a moment to chat with King Charles today down at the World Trade Center Memorial, how do you view your role as mayor? Do you see it as being sort of a polite, diplomatic moment? You just say hello and welcome, or is there anything else you would say to him? Do you have a specific message you might want to deliver?
I'll be saying that today I'll be attending a wreath laying alongside a number of other elected officials, including Governor Hochul, Governor Sherrill, and the focus of that wreath laying is to honor the more than 3,000 New Yorkers who were killed in the horrific terror attacks of September 11th. And that's what I'm really looking to do at that event.
So you haven't thought about anything you might say if you say hello to him and he stops to chat?
You know, if I was to speak to the king separately from that, I would probably encourage him to return the Kohinoor diamond.
Sanglikar's weekly, the ink never dries. Sanglikars Weekly, it's all here for you.
Like, a lady judge in USA is deciding Musk-Altman trial over OpenAI claims. Curious to know who are the jury members.
Let's move to the high-stakes legal battle between Elon Musk and OpenAI, which has taken a dramatic turn. According to reports, in the latest round of cross-examinations, Musk's own legal team may have just opened up a new line of attack for the opposition OpenAI. On Thursday, Jared Birchall, Elon Musk's longtime money manager, gave routine testimony until a note was passed to the attorney conducting his direct examination. The lawyer then raised a new question about XAI's multi-billion-dollar bid made for OpenAI's assets back in February 2025. A topic that was not originally planned for discussion. According to the news report, Birchall claimed that the $97 billion deal bid was meant to force a fair market valuation of OpenAI's non-profit assets. He went on to say that Sam Altman had been negotiating on behalf of both OpenAI's non-profit and for-profit arms simultaneously.
The high-profile legal battle between Elon Musk and OpenAI has entered trial, with jury selection completed despite some members expressing strong negative views about Musk. The case centers on Musk's claim that OpenAI abandoned its non-profit mission in favor of a profit-driven model through its partnership with Microsoft. The verdict could influence the governance and ethical direction of the AI industry. Jury seated despite open bias concerns. Jury selection for the Musk Open AI trial concluded with 9 jurors, including a painter, nurse, and psychiatrist, despite some expressing strong negative opinions about Musk. Judge Yvonne Gonzalez-Rogers denied requests to dismiss these jurors, noting that public dislike does not preclude integrity in the judicial process. All selected jurors pledged impartiality, even as some had described Musk in harsh terms, reflecting the challenge of finding an unbiased panel for such a high-profile case. Judge Yvonne Gonzalez-Rogers in the Musk-Altman case said, "The reality is that people don't like him. Many people don't like him, but that doesn't mean that Americans nevertheless can't have integrity for the judicial process." Compare this with the Kejriwal-Sisodia excise policy case, where both Kejriwal and Sisodia said that they would not appear before Justice Sharma, stating that her decision to continue hearing the matter amounts to a grave miscarriage of justice. Like, comedian Kimmel said First Lady Melania glowed like an expectant widow. The Trumps objected. Bad comment in jest.
For example, as the First Lady of the United States pointed out this morning, just 2 days prior to the shooting, ABC's late-night host Jimmy Kimmel disgustingly called First Lady Melania Trump an expectant widow. Who in their right minds says a wife would be glowing over the potential murder of her beloved husband? And having experienced what I did with the First Lady on Saturday night, I can tell you that she was anything but that. This kind of rhetoric about the President, the First Lady, and his supporters is completely deranged, and it's unbelievable that the American people are consuming it night after night after night. As President Trump said on Saturday night at this podium, we as Americans must recommit ourselves to resolving our differences peacefully and uniting around the shared values that make our country great. The deranged lies and smears against the president, his family, his supporters have led crazy people to believe crazy things, and they are inspired to commit violence because of those words. It has to stop.
A call to fire me from our First Lady, Melania Trump, saying I should be fired because of a joke I made, again, 5 nights ago. It was a pretend roast. I said, our First Lady Melania is here. Look at her, so beautiful. Mrs. Trump, you have a glow like an expectant widow, which obviously was a joke about their age difference and the look of joy we see on her face every time they're together. It was a very light roast joke about the fact that he's almost 80 and she's younger than I am. It was not, by any stretch of the definition, a call to assassination, and they know that. I've been very vocal for many years speaking out against gun violence in particular, but I understand that the First Lady had a stressful experience over the weekend, and probably every weekend is pretty stressful in that house. And also, I agree that hateful and violent rhetoric is something we should reject. I do, and I think a great place to start to dial that back would be to have a conversation with your
Trump is happy having his own photo on currency notes, as well as U.S. passports.
US President Donald Trump's signature is set to appear on US paper currency, marking a first for a sitting president since the introduction of dollar bills in 1861. The decision, cleared by the US Treasury, comes as the country prepares to mark 250 years of American independence this year. From this summer, newly printed notes will carry Trump's signature, beginning with redesigned $100 bills scheduled for printing in June. These notes will also carry Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent's signature, while dropping the US Treasurer's signature for the first time in 165 years. Once printed, the new currency is expected to enter circulation within a few weeks across the United States, marking a rare shift in the design of American money.
And the State Department announced it's releasing a limited edition U.S. passport this summer to mark the 250th anniversary of American independence. Now, the document will feature President Trump's image and signature. The passports will be available only on request.
Breaking news. Next news item. Oh, it's breaking fast. Next news item. Blink and and it's gone.
Like, Hegseth is now threatening U.S. allies, warning them of consequences. We are allies, not vassals, said Italy's PM Meloni.
Of the Department of Defense is over. You see, the motto of my first platoon was those who long for peace must prepare for war. This is, of course, not a new idea. This crowd knows that. The origin dates to the 4th century Rome and has been repeated ever since, including by our first commander-in-chief, George Washington, the first leader of the War Department. It captures a simple yet profound truth. To ensure peace, we must prepare for war. From this moment forward, the only mission of the newly restored Department of War is this: warfighting. Preparing for war and preparing to win. Unrelenting and uncompromising in that pursuit. Not because we want war, no one here wants war, but it's because we love peace. We love peace for our fellow citizens. They deserve peace, and they rightfully expect us to deliver it. Our number one job, of course, is to be strong so that we can prevent war in the first place. The President talks about it all the time. It's called peace through strength. And as history teaches us, the only people who actually deserve peace are those who are willing to wage war to defend it. That's why pacifism is so naive and dangerous. It ignores human nature and it ignores human history. Either you protect your people and your sovereignty, or you will be subservient to something or someone. It's a truth as old as time. And since waging war is so costly in blood and treasure, we owe our republic a military that will win any war we choose, or any war that is thrust upon us. Should our enemies choose foolishly to challenge us, they will be crushed by the violence, precision, and ferocity of the War Department. In other words, to our enemies, F-A-F-O. If necessary, our troops can translate that for you. Another way to put it is peace through strength, brought to you by the warrior ethos. And we are restoring both. As President Trump has said, and he's right, we have the strongest, most powerful, most lethal, and most prepared military on the planet. That is true, full stop. Nobody can touch us. It's not even close. This is true largely because of the historic investments that he made in his first term, and we will continue in this term.
Like, China has warned USA over right choice on Taiwan, ahead of Trump's May 14th visit to China.
As Trump prepares for high-stakes China talks, top Xi aide publicly flags the biggest hurdle blocking genuine diplomatic progress. Beijing draws an unmistakable red line ahead of dramatic Xi-Trump showdown summit hosted on Chinese soil. China sharply calls out the biggest risk threatening talks, warning America sternly to make the right strategic choice. China warns Trump decisively to stay away from Taiwan issue as fears of potential invasion scenarios resurface globally. Rising tensions over Taiwan are once again set to test the already fragile ties between the United States and China, even as both sides seek to avoid a full-scale confrontation. On April 30th, China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi warned that Taiwan is the biggest risk factor in relations with Washington, framing the issue as a core security concern for Beijing.
Any attempt by Communist China to conquer Taiwan by force would result in devastating consequences for the Indo-Pacific and the world. There's no reason to sugarcoat it. The threat China poses is real, and it could be imminent. We hope not, but it certainly could be. We're not here to pressure other countries to embrace or adopt policies or ideologies. We're not here to preach to you about climate change or cultural issues. We're not here to impose our will on you. We are all sovereign nations. We should be able to choose the future we want to build. We respect you, your traditions, and your militaries. And we want to work with you where our shared interests align for peace and prosperity.
Like, a senior journalist asked, why Anil Ambani, who cheated LIC for rupees 4.5 thousand crore and caused total loss of rupees 73,000 crore to PSUs by forgery, fraud and manipulation, is still outside jail. I am tired of asking this question.
Hello and welcome to Money Life. This is Sucheta Dalal. This week I'm going to talk about the Anil Ambani group. Yes, the high-profile, glamorous group who's one of, or probably India's biggest defaulter. People have lost humongous amounts of money. Investors, shareholders, depositors, insurance companies, pension funds, mutual funds, large private investors, everybody has lost. The amount we are talking about is over 1 lakh crore. Now, why are we talking about it today? Because two former senior executives, Amitabh Jhunjhunwala and Amit Bhapna, have been arrested recently. And last month, Mr. Ambani had written a letter to the finance minister seeking a one-time settlement on the lines of what happened with the Sanglikar group of Sterling Biotek. My question is this. In the last 50 years, we haven't seen decisive action. People lose money, a lot of it, it's all written off. People finally just get used to it because litigation drags on for 20 to 30 years. In this case too, like everywhere else, there's a lot of drama, there are arrests. To my mind, these two arrests are decisive. If they turn approver, they can take the government agencies through the trail of funds, through the shell companies, and track where the diversion happened from listed entities. If the government is serious, that's a big if. If not, it'll be like any other. So take a look at why we are discussing this and the sequence of events and where I think it's headed.
Mosquitoes are universal now.
Did you know Iceland is the only country in the world with no mosquitoes? That's right. While most places battle these buzzing pests, Iceland stays mosquito-free thanks to its cold climate and clean environment. The weather changes so quickly that mosquitoes can't even complete their life cycle here. So if you hate mosquito bites, maybe it's time to visit Iceland.
Scientists sounding the alarm after mosquitoes were discovered in Iceland for the very first time. For centuries, Iceland has been one of only two places in the world completely free of the insect, whether it be in Antarctica, but record heat this year created conditions warm enough for mosquitoes to survive. It's still unclear how exactly the mosquitoes got there in the first place.
Breaking news, next news item, oh, it's breaking fast. Next news item, blink and it's gone.
And finally, this whole controversy about making working knowledge of Marathi compulsory for cab and rickshaw drivers is unnecessary. Cab and rickshaw drivers have to only learn येणार नाही instead of नाही आयेगा.
मी एकच बोलणार, जो महाराष्ट्रामध्ये राहतो त्याला मराठी यायला पाहिजे, पहिली गोष्ट. दूसरी गोष्ट, ज्याला नाही येत त्याला शिकायला पाहिजे. मुंबई है, महाराष्ट्र में क्या है, मराठी आएगा तो ही रहना, ये कौन सा सिखाया किसने? यहाँ सब रहता है, सब चलाता, थोड़ी रिक्शा में कोई मुसलमान ही बैठता है, हिंदू भी बैठता है, मुस्लिम भी बैठता है, सबको छोड़ता है, सबको पैसा लेता है.
कितना समय हो गया मुंबई में रहते?
अरे मुंबई में आज 45 एज हो गया मेरा, 80.
मराठी बोलना आता ही नहीं है.
मराठी आता ही नहीं, और हम जो एरिया में रहते हो मराठी का कोई वही नहीं है.
तुम्हाला वाटतं हे प्रॉब्लेम आहे का नाही?
नाही, प्रॉब्लेम तर नाही वाटत. आता मी तिकडे साऊथला पण जातो, तिकडे पण लोकांना हिंदी येते आणि तिकडे पण आपण मराठी बोलू शकतो. ज्या लोकांना मराठी येते मराठी, कन्नड येते कन्नड. कनाडा से आगे इधर पे कोई गाड़ी लेके चला, रिक्शा तो नहीं चलाएगा, उसको क्या मराठी आएगी इधर पे? उसको तो हिंदी आना जरूरी है बस.
Speak Marathi or lose your only means of earning. From May 1st, thousands of auto and taxi drivers in Maharashtra could face a new kind of test. Not driving, not traffic rules, but Marathi language skills, and it's already sparking protests. Transport Minister Pratap Sarnaik says drivers across 59 RTO offices will be tested. They will need to prove they can read and write Marathi. Driver unions, especially migrant workers, are calling this harassment and warning of statewide protests.
इसको हम नहीं मानने वाले, सरकार हो या मंत्री, किसी के रोजगार पे जब आएगी बात तो लड़ाई होगी.
The government says this rule already exists. But what is it? Here's the breakdown. Under India's Motor Vehicles Act 1988, to drive a commercial vehicle, you mainly need a Class 8 pass certificate and a valid driving test. There is no language requirement in the Central Act. But states can add their own rules. In Maharashtra, Rule 24 says drivers of public service vehicles must know the local area and have working knowledge of Marathi. Sounds simple, right? But here's the twist. In 2017, the Bombay High Court ruled that auto rickshaws fall under motor cabs, and motor cabs are exempt from Rule 24, which means the Marathi language requirement will not apply to auto or taxi drivers. So if this test is enforced, it could face a serious legal challenge. Others argue that the High Court judgment was in a different context, and grant of driver badges needs a 15-year domicile certificate and local language proficiency under the RTO rules. Sources say the government may even try to amend the rule book in the state assembly. And this is not just Maharashtra. In Karnataka, similar demands for local language tests are growing, even though the current rules don't allow it. So what is this really about? Better communication with passengers or rising language politics? And the bigger question, can states enforce such language rules in a country driven by migrant workers? This story is far from over.
Lazy Bee. 2nd May 2026.